Well, welcome to another Cutting Edge show. I'm Omar Neal, one of your hosts. I'm the former mayor of Tuskegee, Alabama, and the host of the You Got the Power radio talk show. This program is brought to you in part by the University of Maryland School of Public Health. You know, I don't know quite how to start this show uh, because in the last just few weeks, we've had so many mass shootings that we have to reevaluate very seriously who are we as a nation. We chosen to use the title or speak to the title of "It's a Different World from Where We've Come From," having the collective courage to address gun violence in America in the age of COVID-19. Now, this is a very difficult subject to have. The highly polarized political climate calls for people to go into their corners and to uh, really just hunker down on their positions, their partisan positions. But I think at some juncture we're going to have to ask the question: uh, if we're going to live together as brothers or die together as fools. That's the question. We're going to have a wonderful show today. I want to bring forth my co-host. He is a brother from another mother, a dear friend of mine, the person who is the orchestrator of this space. He is Dr. Stephen B. Thomas, professor of the University of Maryland School of Public Health and director of the Maryland Center for Health Equity. Uh, Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming my co-host, Dr. Stephen B. Thomas. Hey, Dr. T, how you doing, my friend?
You know, Mayor, it's always good to be with you. And I come with a heavy heart.
Mm,
And yet at the same time, I have hope. We've talked about that before. The politicalization of the pandemic, we saw the consequences.
mhm.
But the other area where there's been deaths that are preventable is the politicalization of the gun violence or gun control, call it whatever you want.
Mhm.
The fact that you could literally walk in and walk out equipped like you're going to war in the military
Mhm.
on the same day. Who are we? I think you
Yeah.
have raised a very important question. And tonight we're going to hear about the importance of really addressing young people. They're watching what's happening too.
Mhm.
They're feeling the stress too. And we need to help make sure that we are able to recognize that trauma, not blame people, but help them heal.
Mhm. If you all would do something for me, Dr. T, um, this is a public health issue, and I think that we need to reframe it in that way. I think oftentimes people say it's a political issue, it's a legal issue, it's a constitutional issue. That we have gotten to a point. This is a public health issue, and we need to see it from that vantage point. Maggie, if you could take me back to the deck of the show, I want to introduce our guests. Take me back um, to the beginning, and then we'll go forward. I want to introduce our guests. I had an opportunity. Well, that's why it's not on there. Okay. That's why I didn't do it. So go forward. Thank you. And now I see. I was wondering why I didn't introduce the guests, but that's why I didn't do it. They're not on that particular slide. That's good.
Well,
All
do the
right.
crew, do the crew.
Let me do the crew.
There you
Let me
go.
tell you this, Dr. T, um, and I know, and the public should know that what makes the show work is not necessarily what we do, although, I'm not minimizing what we do, but it's the people behind the scene, the
Yes.
people who I can ask to go back to a slide that I thought I had missed something and I didn't miss it. So, and then they can come back and keep us back on track.
An
Uh,
unseen hand. There
the
you go.
unseen hands, and that's headed up by Meg Jordan, our technical director, assisted by Maggie Daly, who is the assistant technical director, Soraya Khan, who is the social media and communications guru, Kimberly Kimmy Fleming, social media and media curator, and of course the sound designer, Elijah Pugh Jr. And yeah, you saw me bobbing my head, and I
I
do
was
it every
bouncing with
time.
you.
Yeah, man, that's a groove, man. I love it.
Let's
I love
stay
it.
here just for a moment because
Uh-huh.
the audience here knows them, behind the scenes with the cutting edge. Uh, uh, but their talents are also in the other work we're doing to lift up the voices of the community. And we were talking about young people. And one of the things that we did last night was the actual barbershop storybook.
Mm.
And I don't know if you have just a splash screen on that, Meg. But we'll make this available to all of you who are following us on Facebook and the different social medias. But Mayor, we brought on some artists that are actually using their artistic skills to address the very issues we're going to talk about tonight. Meg, if you have that slide, just go ahead and go to that. The barbershop storybook. And you can imagine, they have really responded on cue.
Tell us a little bit about the barbershop storybook project.
Well, it's an example of the different disciplines that we need to bring to the table. And some of the issues we're dealing with are difficult, but one of the ways that you can address them is through the arts.
Mm.
And I think that the pandemic
Thinking out of the box, huh, Doc?
Will bring out more of the arts. We saw that during the AIDS epidemic.
Mm-hmm.
We've got to think out of the box. And this is one of the examples that we'll share with all the people following us.
Yeah.
The barbershop storybook.
Yeah.
And we've had Marcus and Jasmine, we've had them on the show.
Absolutely. And they are incredible talent and wonderful people, just wonderful spirits. You can catch us on social media too. And I think it's
That's
important that we let people know that we are present in a lot of spaces, because it's important to do that as we proliferate this knowledge that we share on each and every cutting edge. You can catch us on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter. You can like, share, subscribe. And we also have a newsletter that we want you to subscribe to as well. And this newsletter comes out each and every week. And the newsletter is incredible, Doc. I mean, it's just always great information. Previous shows are on each newsletter. We also have vignettes or short snippets of our previous guests and talking about some profound things. And so it's just a wonderful way to stay informed with what we're doing here on the cutting edge. So,
Mayor, we're able to actually monitor and track, and we're getting traction. So we'll like to get more feedback from the audience out there about what you're seeing, what you like to see.
Absolutely.
As we keep the newsletter.
Absolutely. All right. Well, Dr. T, dealing with political issues in a time of crisis it's those difficult conversations, but that's what we're here for. That's why we call ourselves the cutting edge. We're willing to go first, right? To have authentic conversations about issues that matter, right? Now, we're not going to be here on June the 9th, June the 16th, June the 23rd, and July 7th live. I don't know how we're going to do that, but that's vacation time for us. And so we have those dates that we're going to be on vacation. So we'll figure out what we can do to keep people engaged. We don't want them to be completely away from us, but we'll do something with newsletter or something.
Absolutely, the newsletter, and an opportunity to also think about how we move into the rest of the summer and into the fall,
right?
As we shape the show.
And the other thing is too, we're going to start eliciting and soliciting, as you said, um, more, comments about what they'd like to see us
Mm-hmm.
do in the future. So people can have a possessory interest in what we're doing here at the Cutting Edge. So I think that's going to be really cool. Dr. T, we got a great show today because we got great guests. Right, as always, we always have great guests. I was doing a show yesterday, the You Got the Power show,
Mm-hmm.
and I had a young man join me on the show, and I was so impressed with him. He's young guy, University of West Florida student, and I say he put it where the cows can get it, right? He really was honest and authentic, and I felt that he would fit this format very well. So I want to bring forth Albie McClendon, who is Albie Clendon, who is a graduating senior at the University of West Florida, majoring in international studies with a focus on security and diplomacy with a minor in political science. I'm not going to read all of that about him, but he ran for the school board in 2018. Now I'm not going to tell you how young he is, but he's very young, and he ran for school board. So he probably was in high school when he ran for the school board.
And that's a lot of work on those school boards.
Absolutely. And I'm going to ask him about what age was he when he decided to do that. But think about it, when somebody puts their name on a ballot, man, that is courage. You literally have to have courage to put yourself out like that, and to be so young and to do it, man, that's powerful.
And you talk about courage. I'm looking there, and he was the president of the Residence Hall Association. That takes courage.
That takes what he's done so much. He has of the college Democrats.
Okay.
And so I mean, he's really been involved, and so we are so happy to have Albie Clendon to join us. Hey, Albie, how you doing, my man?
I'm doing absolutely swell. I was a graduating senior at Baker School. I was literally finishing up high school. I filed not too long after seeing Emma Gonzalez and the Parkland students that were starting their activism with going on after the Parkland shooting, and I felt like, well, this is something that I had seen a high school senior in Texas who had ran and won. So I was like, you know what? I guess why don't I put my hat in the ring? I could start this conversation with my local community. And so, I think it was a month after my 18th birthday. I went down to the supervisor's election office. I Googled everything I need to, filled out the paperwork myself, and my parents were very surprised that I actually went through with it. So
that's some snaps. Albie, this is how we got to give him some love.
Right, Albie, man, we're so appreciative. But the other thing is too, you got a chance to really connect with the community, because when you're running, you have to go out and you have to reach out to the community. So you learn so much about your community, maybe things that you didn't know, right?
For sure.
Right, you see what I'm saying? So tell us about how you felt that experience kind of catapulted you to this next level where you are today.
Yeah, I think a big portion of it with me was finding where I kind of wanted to fit into my community as well too. Also just finding out where my passions could lay as well. I always had a passion for education. My mom is an educator in Okaloosa County. She was when I was running for school board, made things a little awkward at times. There was like, I would kind of be your boss if I won, Mom, but we were talking about a little bit, but I think a big portion of it was just learning what all the different portions of Okaloosa County that I didn't even know about at the time. I was fully fresh in community activism and what it meant to be organizing within my community, whatever. I was just like, maybe I'll run for school board. Like this will be an experience. So I learned a lot about people. I think the one thing that really stuck with me and made me realize how just stepping out and going forward is so incredibly powerful. There was a couple in their late 30s who told some of our organizers while I was at an event, they didn't come up to me and told them this. They're like, we saw you in the newspaper about running for school board, and we decided we want to vote for you. We registered to vote for the first time. We've never felt like we had anyone that would actually be true to what they're saying they're wanting to do, and that they're going to actually help the community. So we entrust you with our vote. So that I didn't come close to winning, but to know that I had that enthusiasm.
Oh, you came close to winning when you put your name in
there. You go.
You know, because you see, winning is not always winning. See, you can win without, getting voted in. There are ways to win. You won already, right?
Yeah.
You won the hearts of many people and the admiration of many people, to include Dr. T and myself. So there was winning.
And Mayor, Albie, you talked about how the Parkland students inspired you. And I think that's another very important example of why we need to be role models. I saw in your bio that you went to Appalachia State.
Yeah, I'm applying. Hopefully, I was just offered a graduate assistantship over there, and I'm taking the GRE on Saturday. So hopefully that's where I'll be seeking my master's from Appalachian State. So yeah,
absolutely love it.
That's wonderful. Good. So hang tight, man. We got to bring on another brother that we absolutely adore here on the Cutting Edge. His name is Russ Kennebrew. He's an author, educator, and DEI trainer. He has been on the Cutting Edge before. He's formerly a candidate for Congress in Michigan. He hails from the great city of Detroit, Michigan. This brother, we were talking earlier, Dr. T, about people who are just authentic, people who are truthful, people who are articulate. This brother checks all of those boxes. We are so pleased and honored to have him be a part of the Cutting Edge show. We invited him to not just be a guest on them periodically, but to really be an integral part of what we do here on a regular basis. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming my dear friend and my brother, Russ Kennebrew. Hey, man. How you doing?
I'm doing great today, man.
Welcome back.
Thank you so much, Doc. Thank you so much for having me.
Whenever we have shows like this, man, we probably need somebody like you anyway to help us unpack this stuff, man. Because I'm at my wit's end. I really am, man. I thought that Buffalo was the worst thing that could happen. I mean, I said, okay, so we've gotten rock bottom. Then Texas, right? And you have 19 babies gunned down, 2 adults, and then the husband of one of the teachers.
Yes.
And you got to add that death into this,
yes,
because that's collateral damage.
Terrible.
Right. And even the shooter, the person who did it, you have to add him in as well. Regardless of how egregious his act, he's still a human being.
That's right.
Right. And that really, that shook me. And then to find out yesterday in Tulsa, Oklahoma, a person went into a medical unit, a medical hospital, and killed 5 people there. It's just we're gonna talk about this later on in the Public Health Minute, but it's been 27 shootings or mass shootings in schools this year alone in the United States. We're approaching 300 mass shootings in this year in the United States. And the year is not just halfway here, right? We have an epidemic that we must deal with it, and we got to do something differently. And I don't know the answers, but I do know that we got to do something. So I wanted to have the conversation where we can kind of unpack this. I was talking with Albie earlier, because, and he said something, because we were talking about, determinants of health, and we always talk about this, the social determinants of health and that. But Albie was saying that the gun violence is an outgrow of something else. You cannot look at it in a vacuum. You have to look at it broader. Albie, could you kind of share with the audience what your thoughts were about this notion of gun violence?
Yeah, I think it's a symptom of a lot of crises in our country, not just the national gun violence crisis. It's a symptom of unaffordable housing. It's a symptom of unaffordable healthcare. It's a symptom of systemic poverty. It's a symptom of of just our incredible love of guns to a degree. It's a whole host of a variety of different things that are going in and tuning into why gun violence is such an incredible, crazy phenomenon that seems to be just taking root here in the United States. We don't have the social services to be able to properly support the country to where it's expensive to be poor in this country. And that's a reality that affects gun violence because you have access to something that a lot of people shouldn't have access to. They don't have access to housing. They don't have access to quality health care. It's no wonder that we keep having this crazy cycle of craziness going on all the time. It's just perpetual.
Albie, when the mayor introduced you, we were amazed at your youth and what you stepped out to do. So I'm curious as to what you're thinking when you see the ages of the perpetrators, 18 years old.
They're your age, Albie.
18 years old in Texas.
What's up?
Yeah. Whenever the March for Our Lives, the original students did their bus tour, they came to Pensacola back in 2018, and they had seen me running for school board. A lot of them wanted to meet me one-on-one. We went and we all had lunch together. We had a whole full-blown conversation about different things happening, and it was one of the things that I remember one of those student activists talking about was just how whenever they were the perpetrator and what happened at Parkland, that it was just a complete failure of the support systems that should have been in place to support that student to keep them from being able to do all that. It wasn't just access to a firearm. Yes, access to a firearm created that situation, but that student never was properly referred to mental health services. That student didn't have the correct support system back at home. And that school wasn't equipped to be able to help that student whenever they needed it the most. So that's what I'm seeing, is that it's a failure of government on many levels. It's not just we need this law to keep this thing from having access to, or it's not just we need to address mental health. It's a coin with many sides, essentially.
Mayor, you've said this many times. The way you frame the issue depends on who embraces the cause. And so it's not what's wrong with that 18-year-old. It's what happened to him. And that's what you're describing. You're describing what happened to him.
Absolutely. It's deeper than that. And Albie made me realize that. I'm so appreciative of the way that he framed the issue. Royce, this notion that we can have these kind of knee-jerk responses to crisis and come up with these kind of I don't know, just marginal responses, policy responses, will not get to what Albie is saying. Is that correct?
I believe so. It seems to me that, as Albie has said, that what we see with the gun violence, it is absolutely a gun problem. When you have more guns in the country than people, and you have 330 million people, you got a gun problem. And then you also have a problem with culture and society, meaning that our society says that in certain areas, because of the gun lobby, because of the NRA, and because of some organizations that are on the right of the NRA, if you can believe that there are some organizations on the right, of the NRA and this perversion in their understanding of the Second Amendment has made it possible for weapons of war to be sold to people who have been determined to be functionally, mentally incapacitated.
Yes.
People can buy a firearm if you have a personal protective order against you. You can have you can purchase a firearm in so many different situations. And so that's part of our society, because people, we know this phrase, follow the money. And guns are expensive. I think when they said the young man from Texas, he bought like one of his ARs for like $1,300. I was like, whoa, I didn't have $1,300 when I was 18, but
spent over $3,000 to arm himself.
So think about that. One person, $3,000, and you have 330 million guns. How much money's being made? And here's something, as an individual who has run as a Democrat, not just Republicans receive money from the gun lobby. Also, Democrats receive money from the gun lobby. And so when we start looking at it as a bigger problem, as a political problem, as a cultural problem, as a society problem, then we start understanding the totality of what we need to do to start to combat it on so many different levels.
Can you excuse me? Can I go to Mike and Mike Brown? I want to bring him up for a second. I want to go in the barbershop.
Hey, Dynamite.
Dynamite, how you doing, man? Love you, man.
Hey, brothers, how y'all doing? Love you too. Love you too.
Good. Man, man, this notion, because brothers are saying, man, everybody got to have a gun because, I'm not going to be in a pitchfork fight and I'm the only one don't have one. right. You see what I'm saying? Right. So now, as Dr. Royce Kennebrew is saying, you got all these guns, but now that's what make people buy guns, because everybody has one. Right. Mm-hmm. So that doesn't mean that, because the question is, you're not going to take those guns back out of the society. I don't see a way to do that. Right. Now, we can talk about who gets the guns from this point, but the guns that have already been proliferated around this country, those guns are not going to be retrieved. Right. So what's the conversation with the brothers about guns right now, particularly those in the African-American communities? How do they see it?
Well, they're taking the position of, I had to defuse a conversation the other day, because especially when the guy went off and was shooting and he was aiming to kill all Black people, that really stirred the community up. And they said, I'm just going to go. And, anyone I see, I'm going to shoot. I was like, if you take that, then it's a revolution going on. But going back to, what I heard the young, I'm sorry, I forgot his name. Albie was explaining this guy that was 18 years old is not old enough to buy a bottle of liquor, but he can buy 2 guns. And his motives, I believe his motives were taught. I don't believe that he just turned 18 and said, I'm going to kill Black people. I believe that was taught and is deep rooted. And from the community, speaking from the community, from what we talked about in here, I mean, it's kids that their parents are just gun fanatics, and they have so many that they're not going to miss one if their child steals one and takes it to school. Mm-hmm. All of that needs to be regulated. It starts from the upbringing at home, I feel, because you can't just go. I mean, I watched that horrific video. It was sent to me when he just got out the car and started shooting. And he came to a white guy in a lane, and the white guy put his hands up and he said, "Sorry, sir," and stepped over him and shot a Black guy in the head. we watched that. That was graphic. I mean, some things shouldn't be seen. It just gives you, it leaves stains in your brain that's hard to erase when you see it. And then once you see something that horrific with that motive and that intent, you can't help but take it personal. And trying to diffuse that with people who have guns that shouldn't is a hard thing to do.
Mm.
And that's where it leaves me in the middle of it.
Yeah. Albie, I want to bring you into this space because we are racially polarized in this country. And that is a given. And when you add racism with, the access to guns and the kind of romanticizing of guns in this country, that's a pretty bad cocktail, right? So, how do we get out of this? I mean, where do we go from here? Chaos or community?
Well, I think one of the things that really stuck with me throughout my run for the Okaloosa County School Board was the fact of this saying I kept hearing over and over again from other candidates, especially, and it's that our schools are microcosms of our society. They're what we're going to see whenever those individuals age out of that system. They're a symptom of that support system within that community. I think that what needs to happen is that education has to improve. We have to figure out how we can formulate things to be better. I think that Florida, especially at the moment, has taken a lot of steps backwards because it's easy to scare people into taking steps backwards. I think that is, unfortunately, the circumstance with part of it is that we have to figure out how we can not necessarily tiptoe, but tiptoe around figuring out how we can have this country never really reckoned with its past with racism in a variety of ways. So there's, I think part of it starts with the classroom. I think it starts with everybody having uncomfortable conversations more often, because not having those conversations leads to where we can put people in a box and be like, that's the other. That's the person I'm afraid of. That's not the person I want to talk to. And I think that's part of the reasons why. I mean, I'm an openly gay man, and so to see like Ron DeSantis sign the "Don't Say Gay" bill in the office in Florida, wanting to figure out ways to shape education in Florida to keep those conversations from happen when those conversations are so incredibly important to students and to people who are part of that community, of my community. It affects everyone in entirety. 45% of LGBTQ youth in this country attempt suicide at one point. And the vast majority of suicide is done with a gun because it's instant and it gets the job done. So it's holistic. We got to figure out how this country just has to get better at having uncomfortable conversations. That in all honesty, shouldn't be uncomfortable.
I agree with you. Rush, we have talked about this kind of thing before, how to navigate conversations that get to the root part of it. If you look at the shooter in Brooklyn, he was operating with fear of existential threat to his race, right? And there are a lot of people who have been told, based on the shifting demographics in this country, that white people or people who are classified as white will be the minority. And so therefore they have to equip themselves to protect themselves in the eventuality of their minority status. Am I wrong for saying that's what they are hearing, and that's what creates this kind of desperate activity, is that they see themselves being threatened with the extinction?
You're absolutely correct. Replacement theory is something that is being promulgated, particularly on the right. But here's something that I want individuals to think about: how much this doesn't make sense. The young man in Buffalo, with this idea of replacement theory, he went and shot all seniors. individuals that have the ability to replace him were shot. These were all people after pretty much childbearing years he wouldn't kill. So the replacement theory idea, he wasn't really acting on. It was more on a racial premise. The other thing is that he's being gaslit by certain people that it isn't African Americans' fault or Latinx people's fault or Asian people's fault or people from the LGBTQ people's fault that the white population is declining. It is white boys and white girls having relationship with Black, Asian, and Latinx individuals. It is not our fault. If he wanted to stop the problem, he should go to his family reunion, pull out the gun and say, y'all stop having babies with Black, brown, and other people, right? Do you understand how this doesn't make sense? These people, yeah, during slavery, individuals were raped. But the reason why the white population is because people are going willingly and having relationships with people of color. So, you know, it doesn't make sense. And then
so miscegenation is the problem, is what he's not taking into consideration.
Not taking that into consideration. And the last thing is that individuals like Sean Hannity and Tucker Carlson are being rewarded with viewers and sponsorships for their network for saying things that they know are not true. And they are exaggerated. This replacement theory talks about that there is a conspiracy behind something that is naturally happening. There is no conspiracy because it's naturally happening. No one had to make a conspiracy for Jane and Tyrone to get together, right? It's no conspiracy. It's because they were consenting adults, and that's what happened.
In a free society.
In a free society.
Right.
In a free society. So it's gaslighting. It's this distortion of the truth, and people just aren't being honest about who's responsible for the demographic changes in our country.
Mayor, it's something that you say this all the time about putting it where the cows can get it. And I thought that Mike's analysis, I think this is when we go to the community for its wisdom. He said it's taught. Hate is taught. He hit it right on the head. But it's also staying on the brain. That's trauma. And I want Dr. Kennebrew to respond to Mike's framing and how we need, in public health, I'm looking in the mirror now, need to model that talk.
Well, I think, first of all, I think that mental health has been stigmatized to a level in which we don't deal with it as we should. We are the stigma is starting to fade and we're starting to deal with it better. But I am really concerned that people don't understand that because of the pandemic, because of the isolation, because of things that have occurred with housing insecurity, food insecurity, job insecurity, the loss of life, hospitalization, that people have, adults have PTSD, and children have adverse childhood experiences caused by trauma.
Yes.
And all of those things, a byproduct is having these powerful emotions like anger, like depression, like denial, like insomnia. And when these things occur, it is more easy for you to be led astray by talking heads on the right, like Sean Hannity, Tucker Carlson, Breitbart, and those other stations that promulgate those things. So it is something that we have to think about in regards to what trauma-informed practices. And I agree with my friend here today. It starts in school with social and emotional learning at pre-K level.
Okay.
How is it that you deal with powerful emotions? How is it that you manage your powerful emotions? How is it that you are sympathetic and empathetic to others who may be of the LGBTQ community, who may be women, who may be African American? How to make strong relationships and responsibly make decisions. Those are all things that if they were taught at the grassroots level, you would have people who are more sympathetic and empathetic to the way that they treat others. And it's hard to go into somewhere to shoot your grandmother in the face and then go in and shoot kids to the extent where they need DNA specimens just to identify bodies. That is prison.
Yeah, I'm curious, Albie, is whether or not the resegregation of society has contributed to this. At one juncture with Brown versus the Board of Education, we decided that we would desegregate. We've never had integration. Integration requires the sharing of power, and that's never happened. So I'm going to use the word desegregate, which is a more appropriate term. With the resegregation of our school systems, how does what you're saying will apply if people are not in proximity to each other? You learn from people by being in communication, in proximity to each other. How has this resegregation of society contributed to the othering, as you are so clearly articulated?
I think it really it makes it easier for those arguments to seem true for people. Whenever, the thing is I went to a rural K through 12 high school in rural Florida for my high school years in Baker, Florida. And there's an incredible, I think there were maybe 8 or 10 people of color who attended that school, and there was maybe
how many people in the school approximately?
That school had about, my graduating class had just over 100, but we had about 1,500 in total.
Okay. And so 10 people of color there.
Maybe just about. No one, I think there was maybe one person on faculty or maybe just a couple people on faculty that were people of color as well too. I think that's part of where stigmas come from, especially, just dealing with it as an openly gay person. I had an incredibly hard time coming to terms with that with myself, because the only people that I had seen that were openly gay, I didn't experience that until I was here at the University of West Florida. I didn't have that experience, be able to have that easiness, that conversation. And so it affects people's attitudes. It affects the othering. I think the solution is going to be a complicated one. I think part of it comes back to the fact that we don't have any good incentives to make people be educators anymore. It's incredible. Educators have, my mom is an educator. I love education. It's probably something I would do if we lived in a perfect world where being an activist wasn't necessary. But education is the fact that only up until now, you could be making under $40,000 for a job where you're responsible for hundreds of students to make sure they're properly educated, and that the state of Florida might come in and say, well, you're not really supposed to talk about that. We want to make sure you only talk about this. We're going to make sure we don't care what your thoughts are as an educator. And then on top of the fact too, we might need you to ensure that your students know what to do in case someone decides to bring a firearm into the school as well too, just in case. And also you have to pay for all your supplies for your classroom as well too. And we'll remove the mold out of your classroom that's making you sick as well too. I don't know. It's so.
And also to criminalize teachers who may even slip and say something about slavery or something like that.
Exactly.
Tell some real history.
Yeah, and then we'll pay, and maybe if you're lucky, we'll pay you over $40,000 to do that throughout the year. Maybe, I think Florida only just now, I think, set the minimum wage to be an educator in Florida was just set, I think, at 45 or 47. Some districts are trying to figure out ways to set it, I think, at 47. But that doesn't incentivize people to stay in education either. For those people who have been working as educators for years as well too. My family's originally from Michigan, all around, kind of almost around the Lapeer area, around Detroit. And my mom had to take a significant pay cut to move down to Florida because we wanted to seek a better life. We wanted to get away from the cold in Michigan, honestly. We want to get some of that Florida sunshine. And it cost my family dearly for us to be able to do that. It didn't make sense for my dad to take up a second job because childcare was so expensive. Like it was.
Yeah,
it completely let down the education system in a whole variety of areas.
So you are contributing the education system or the failures or the dysfunctionality within our education system as a contributor to what we are experiencing here as well. Is what you're drawing that nexus, right?
1000%. I think that part of if schools were properly, I think one of the things, especially in Florida, they've made some strides to take into account mental health in a variety of areas. But if those support systems aren't working, if reporting a student who isn't doing well, if they don't have the courage or don't feel like they can go talk to a mental health counselor, if teachers aren't given the resources to talk about uncomfortable things, and if parents don't trust teachers to have those conversations with their student as well too, they've been kneecapped. Like they're just completely, like, it's the most impossible situation to be a teacher right now in the K through 12 system.
Right.
And Mayor, as Albie's describing the reality on the ground, and salute to your mom and the teachers who are out there who made a difference in our lives. You stepped up to run for the school board. And so
at 18 years old.
Yes, at 18.
Incredible.
So that's
You're
where the
incredible,
hope
man.
is.
Yeah.
Dr. Kennebrew, that's where the hope is.
Right.
That's where the role model is.
Right.
And that's what I think will get us out of this mess.
Right. What we're going to do a couple of things. One is I want to tee up Dr. Ritter. And then I want to tee you up after we do. Let me tee up Dr. Ritter. Let's bring her in. Then tee up Meg. I want to tee you up to do your piece. And then right after Meg does her piece, we're going to go right into the word cloud because we want to get the feel. I wanted to kind of have the conversation, then we get the feel later. Dr. Ritter, an interesting conversation. Obviously, it's one that is nuanced. I don't know whether or not we have an answer to this. I'm seeing things now that I didn't think I would see in 2022, right? The number of mass shootings. We've had murders all the time. Murder is nothing new, particularly in the African American community, right? But to see just how common it is, to the point that I think many people are numb to the fact that it doesn't even, they're desensitized maybe,
yes,
right, to what's happening. And when you become comfortable in that should make you uncomfortable, you are at the precipice of losing this thing called democracy. A good evening to you, Dr. Ritter. How are you doing?
I am fine. Thank you for inviting me to come up and talk. I'm listening, and it's like really encouraging to hear Albie's conversation and how he's engaged. And congratulations to you for getting involved at such a young age. We need white men like you. I am a gynecologist, so I have a totally different perspective on this. And I've been thinking about gun violence for a very long time, and you cannot ignore domestic violence and mass shootings. They're intimately connected. Mm-hmm. We have been ignoring domestic violence for a very long time because you know what? It affects mostly Black women, and we don't care about Black women. And Andre, you know my quote from Malcolm X. This goes along with us. We just don't care about Black women, so we just ignore it. So how many of these mass shootings are we seeing coming out from women behind the gun? Well, not many, right? So where is the problem? Is it really in our school system, or is it how we are educating and how we are raising our young men? That is the problem, because women are raised in a different way. We've been gaslighted forever. We don't pick up guns. We may pick up a knife like Elaine Bobbitt and get to your organ where it counts, but we don't kill you, right?
Don't
Very rare.
remind me of that.
Very
That
rare.
that
Extremely
visual.
rare.
Andre, hold on a second. Andre, I'll bring you in when it's time. Okay. All right. Okay. All right.
So
Go ahead.
this is where I come from. I mean, it's a huge problem that's been here for a long time, and the mass shootings. It's political, it's racist, and it's sexist. I mean, really, women, pregnant women are dying. 50% of the maternal deaths are from guns, but we haven't been keeping track of it because we haven't been caring. So maybe these mass shootings will wake us up, but it really isn't about the schools. It really isn't about that, because we can't put everything on the schools, but it is how our society is raising. And part of it is racism, because white men were told they could never fail. Okay.
Wow.
They could never fail. So what do they do when they feel like they failed because a woman rejected them? They pick up a gun and they go out and shoot people. So I don't know how you solve that, but it comes from the community, really from the ground up, really. And schools
So we're
are-
talking about toxic masculinity, basically.
Mhm.
Is
I
that
think
what we're
you're
talking
right.
about?
Yeah.
Right. All right. So that's real. This is so great. Meg, come up and we're gonna do a couple of things. One is we still this, you know,
It's
spring
still the
has
age of
sprung.
COVID, right?
Spring is sprung, but COVID ain't done. You know. So
There you go.
so Meg, run the numbers for us, because we need to do that. And then tell us about violence and gun violence. Let's talk about gun violence. Meg Jordan.
Absolutely. Good evening, everybody. So today, for the past 2 weeks in COVID-19, we've had 1.5 million new cases. The cases are going up. We've had 3,000 deaths in the past 2 weeks from COVID-19. In the past 2 weeks, 611,000 Americans have gotten fully vaccinated. And unfortunately, they changed my data source on me, so I can't talk about boosters this week, which
Okay.
is COVID data frustration. Next, please, Maggie. So this brings us to 84.4 million cases of COVID-19. It brings us to 1,003,000 deaths from COVID-19. And we are at 221 million Americans fully vaccinated.
Wow.
Okay.
And look at that question mark on the boosters again. And Mayor, you know, it's all about the boosters now.
Right. We got to boost the booster, right? And you know, that's going to be really important. All right, Mick, do the public health minute for us. Thank you for that.
I don't mean to imply people aren't getting boosted. All I'm saying is that where I was getting it is not there anymore. So I don't want to falsify and say nobody's getting boosted. I
Right.
just wanted to get you a good data source.
Absolutely.
Thought I'd
And that's being responsible too,
Yes.
Meg, because
Yeah.
we want to make sure that we have numbers that we can we can source, and that's critically important. So we got you. We saw you when you pulled up. You didn't have to blow. Okay, there we
You
go.
know, I wanted it for the record, Mayor Neal. Okay.
All right, okay, here we go. Go ahead.
So I zoomed out a little bit because as we've brought in a lot of different things, firearm deaths are mass shootings, they're homicides, they're suicides, they're a lot of different things. So I wanted to set the ground. Firearm deaths have increased in the past 10 years, and now more people lose years of their life from guns than they do from car crashes. Car crashes used to be the thing that killed young people, right? And we're seeing that change. 85% of firearm deaths are men, which is we're going to break that down a little bit why. Next, please, Maggie. So when you're talking about homicide, the people who are most affected by homicide are Black boys age 1 to 19. 35% of deaths in Black boys 1 to 19 are from homicide. But when you turn to gun deaths and when you talk to suicide, it actually is American Indian and Alaskan Native girls. That's the leading cause in their category. Next, please, Maggie. And I'll be on your wavelength, right? Because yes, this is the issue. Half of LGBT teens seriously consider suicide. And when you look at pandemic suicidality, when we look at the impact that it has had, I mean, we can't just say it's the pandemic, right? Because the absolute wave of legislation that has come down on LGBT kids in the past 2 years is wild. But half consider suicide. So I thought that important to put in here.
That's a huge number of people.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we could get into all that, but it's Pride Month, so I'm
Yeah.
not gonna dive right
Yeah,
to that
okay.
way.
Okay.
So I wanted to talk to you about a number, because Mayor Neal, you asked me once, you know, it's like, it's not just like the moment a person dies that affects you, right? It's the rest of the people around them's life.
Mhm, mhm.
And you have to think of the person as like what they would have had their whole life, right? So when we think about gun violence death, they calculate a number of years of life lost. So when a person dies at 19, that was supposed to live to 80, right? All those years they lost. And when you add all the years that we've lost from gun violence, in the South, we've lost 5.7 million years of life. In the Northeast, 1.2 million years. And in the Midwest, 2.7 million. And in the West, 2.6 million. And when you total these all up, next please, Maggie. In the past 10 years, all the people that have died of firearm deaths, we have lost 12.6 million years of people's lives, all in total.
Wow.
Now, Meg, stay there just for a moment, because this is public health in action. This is a public health issue, and I just want to compliment how you have framed it in a way that is accessible. The years of life lost should be resonating with everybody who's listening, because it puts it in that broader perspective.
Right. And you have to add in economics loss.
Yes.
Because everybody that died early could have contributed to their families, to their
That's right.
communities in terms of economic contributions, right? Productivity, creativity.
That's
Who
right.
knows what that person could have done that could have advanced society, right? So when you add all of that up, it's incalculable in terms of how the loss. I don't know if you can even calculate it.
Now, Mayor, stay there just for a moment, because you opened up with the money that the gun lobby puts out. And Dr. Kimbrough talked about that as well. Isn't the other side of the balance sheet what Meg just showed us? Why don't we ever balance that out? That it's not worth that, whatever the gun lobby's investing, given the years of life lost and the productivity. When you add that up, it affects the whole nation.
But the thing is, it's worth it to whom, right? I think that becomes the question. Who are you worth to whom, right? And if you are worth less to the system, you got it, then that's a whole nother thing. Meg, thank you so much. We're going to do the word cloud, and so you got to get in the back room and help us calculate that kind of things. Let's do the word cloud quickly. Do you know we're coming up on the hour? Albie, you see an hour has gone by already. You see how quickly this time flies. We're going to do the word cloud. Dr. T, tee it up.
You know, one of the things we always do is we ask Albie for you to think of a word that best describes how you're feeling right now at this moment in the pandemic, and just drop it in the chat. And for the next 30 seconds, drop as many words one at a time in the chat that come to mind. For those out there in social media, you can use the Q&A box. And if you don't have access, you can just put it, you can say it out loud and we'll type it in. And the more people who say a certain word, the larger the word will be. So we'll see what that looks like and how that can also animate the conversation moving forward. You know, it's one thing about the numbers and being numb to the numbers. And we've talked to Delegate Pena Melnick, a legislator. And one of the things she said, that to move legislation, you definitely have to have the numbers. But what really closes the deal are the voices, the voices of the people, the heartbeat behind those numbers. And I'm wondering if there's enough bandwidth out there for the families, and even if the burden should be put on those families to have to carry that load, that voice. But we've got to hear.
Well,
from them.
we should
and even make our platform here available to them.
Doc, let me tell you something, man. We all are the families. Because if it hadn't happened to you, you ain't nothing but next. Right? And so we have to see ourselves as the families.
Okay.
Right? Not just because of, it happened to you now. If it happened to you, it happened to me. A threat to justice to anyone is a threat to justice to everyone. Right? One of the things that I wanted to do is this, Albie, and I'm going to bring, Andre, I'm going to bring you on. So I'm teeing you up. Okay. All right. Albie, there are people who, even in the midst of this prolific violence through guns, have kind of hardened their positions, right? But there are no political repercussions. So why would they change if they continue to get elected? People, when Columbine, Parks, just name them all. Yep. When those babies got killed, nothing happened. So, and those same people stayed in office, and many of them are still in office. So if there are no repercussions, why will people change?
I think people, one of the things I learned in my legislative process class here at the University of West Florida was that to be a successful legislator, you have to be selfish. You have to ultimately, there's this idea that, if you want to have a long and fruitful political career, you have to, you have to do whatever is going to get you reelected. You could do all these amazing things in your first term, but if pushing for that one thing is going to make it harder for you to get reelected, and that is incentive to not do what your voters put you there to do. So I think at the end of the day, none of this is going to change until the people that are held accountable by their voters are held accountable by people who are going to challenge them for public office as well too. I hardly doubt anyone thought an 18-year-old was going to run for the Okaloosa County School Board in 2018.
And win.
If young people run, then we can win. If young people vote, we can win. If everybody gets out and is accountable to themselves about this is something that I care about, this is something I want to change, I want to move this mountain, then we could have change in this country. But we all have to be a part of it. There is all something that we can do to contribute to this conversation of addressing the variety of crises happening in this country outside of just that are all contributing to gun violence.
Yeah. It's interesting, Dr. Kennebrew, let me say this. Part of the problem is that we have too many transactional people, right, in leadership, right, political leadership and otherwise, not transformational, right? What Albie is saying is that you are literally told that in order for you to have longevity in political spaces, you have to be selfish. That's an incredible statement for a young person to hear, right?
And not just told, but taught. It was in a class.
Right. You ran for Congress. I'm sure that you were thinking about, doing some transformational things and not just there, to get there for your own personal aggrandizement, right?
Absolutely. Albie's correct. And it is the sad state of a two-party system in which most of the electorate does not participate. In the 2020 presidential election, Detroit turned out around 53% of the electorate. That was phenomenally high. In an off presidential year, we may get 20% When you have people dealing with significant issues in regards to being able to eat, to clothe themselves, to house themselves, to be gainfully employed, when poverty is an issue, when poor education is an issue, and things of the such, it's hard. And I think about Abraham's Maslow hierarchy of needs.
Mhm.
It's
Yes.
hard to get to the actualization stage level that's up higher up where voting would be when your basic needs aren't being met. And so when poverty is widespread in a community like ours and like the country, that people check out from the political electorate. And so then you can teach what Albie learned because it's absolutely true, because the numbers are in your favor. When more people, if more poor and low wealth people, more young people were to vote, then we could literally sweep out every politician that we do not care for. But they know that to do that, they have to be engaged. And that means you have to not be worried about student loans, and not be worried about gas prices, and not be worried about affordable education, and not be worried about affordable housing, and not be worried about affordable healthcare. And that's just not the case for the majority of the country.
You're absolutely right. We're gonna bring Andre up a second, and I know you've been like a little kid in the back of the room with your hand up the whole time.
He's in Atlanta, where the CDC is.
Yeah,
That
absolutely.
has responsibility for guns and gun epidemiology.
And I think sometimes we don't see CDC as being, connected to the
You're right.
this issue, but it really is. This is a public health issue. Hey, Andre, how you doing, man?
You got to unmute yourself,
you
Andre.
got to unmute yourself.
There you go.
Thank you for talking to the guy that has a barbershop in the busiest airport in the world. And Mr. Clendenin and Dr. Kennebrew, you guys are talking about all of the right things. But I have to look at what we're doing in the barbershops. And in the barbershops, did we ask one of these guys that went up and shot all those people, did they go out and get a haircut prior to them going out shooting? Was there a possibility? Because right now we're talking about mental health.
Mhm.
Was there something that if they were talking about it in the barbershop, we could have seen a trigger, something that we could have stopped, something we could have mentioned,
Mhm.
something we could have taken a step to? And I'm sure there isn't, because we're not professionals. But what I'm saying is, same thing I've been saying for the last couple of months. We always talk to professionals about mental health, PhDs, and this, that, and the other. And of course, Dr. Ritter talking to our great emancipator, our great enunciator. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And but what I'm saying basically is there something that at the barbershops that we could do to alert, to do a trigger? Is there such a thing as a class? Is there something that we could do?
You keep talking. Bring Mike up.
All right.
So Andre, you're on to something so important, because when people sit in that chair,
Right.
you have a chance to have a relationship, and they come back time and time again.
Yeah.
You see patterns.
Hey, Mike.
Hey.
One of the things. Let me say this, because I want you all to have this conversation as well. A lot of times when people decide, as we see it, a lot of times they've been thinking about this for months and
Yes.
years.
Mhm.
Exactly. Right.
Right.
Yeah.
If you look at these patterns, these people have been groomed over years.
Yes.
Right. They've been in these silos with the social media, and they've been
Right.
fed. And so it gets to a tipping point. Right. So it's not like it happens all in one day. It's a cumulative
Yes.
effect. Mike, Go ahead.
From
Go
what
ahead.
I understand, a lot of times they'll clean themselves up to come in and go out and commit suicide. So is there something that they could have talked about in the chair?
Wow.
And that's where I am.
Right.
And
You know,
Mike,
that's something important.
Yeah, and Mike, I know that you talk to your people all the time. And is there something that we could see as barbers that say, well, let's stop this trigger. This guy's getting ready to talk about going out and killing people, which is not necessarily what he's saying, if you get what I mean. He could be saying that I am so tired of this. I am so tired of that.
But at this point, Mike, at this point, Andre, at this point,
go ahead,
yes, you can say things, but to what extent do you share it with authority or other people, right? Because then now you're talking about, confidentiality, and you're talking about a whole lot of things. Then you're also talking about a brother that found out that you, what they say, snitches get stitches and end up in ditches, right?
But let's hear from Mike.
I'm gonna say one thing real quick before Mike. Hey, Mike, get ready to talk.
Yeah,
I'm gonna say one thing.
Hold up. One thing. Let me talk about. Hold up, Andre. Let me talk to Mike.
He chased one of my barbers through the mall with a knife, and I said, "Where the hell did that come from?" So that's what I'm talking about. Go ahead, Mike. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I'm kind of lost at what the actual question is, but just talking relevantly, you can't really determine when somebody is going to make a move. If somebody has in his mind that he's going to go and shoot up the set and do that, he could probably tell you in some emphasis, I'm just tired of this mess. I got to do something. You may never pick up on what he's going to do. You just never know the state of mind of person. So just for me, just knowing my people and having the relationship that I have with them, I know when something's wrong, when something's off. Mm-hmm. And for most of the time, when I see my customers, they happy to see me because they ready to look good and they know I'm the one to do it. So that relationship, if any
hold up, Andre, let him talk.
If any other order of attitude come in here, that man, I'm happy to see you get me right. I know something is wrong, and we start talking about it immediately. What's going on, man? This ain't you. What's up? Right. And they will start pouring out their heart right there. And when they leave, they'll leave with some answers, or if not a solution, at least thinking about something in a different manner. And that's where the magic happens right there in the relationship. Yeah. You can't replace that. You can't buy that.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. That's wonderful. Thank you so much, Andre, Mike. Thank you so much. What we're going to do, bring up the word cloud, bring Sandra T Sandra up for the next.
Thanks, Mike.
Good. Now, if you look at where we are, because of, I think, the cumulative effect of what's happening, that people are sad. They literally, and you can't cover that over, right? You can't camouflage that. People are sad. And although we try to be hopeful and we try to be a village but people are frustrated. It's like a whirlwind of things happening, exhausted, mad, children dying, killing children, unheard of, solemn, overwhelmed, willing to talk, tired, mental health, ignored, right? So we really need to unpack what's happening. And it's bigger than just the shootings. The shootings is an outgrowth of something. It is a symptom.
Yes.
And the symptom is merely a messenger to you that you have a problem.
Big one.
And right. And that's what's about. Sandra Jenkins, let's go to her up in Philadelphia. The Philly area. I don't, she's not in Philadelphia. She said I'm right outside of Philadelphia. But,
Well, I like to claim both sides because that's really what really just makes up the community at large. Being rooted and homegrown from Philadelphia, I will never, ever leave Philadelphia spirit because it means so much to me. And Philadelphia has been a major part of my success at Naturalist. So being, in the Montgomery County community, it is quite an interesting experience in regards to understanding how to navigate a community that is predominantly white. When I first rooted myself in Montgomery County, that was a really educated decision that I had made because the fact that I lived in Montgomery County, I sent my son to school in Montgomery County. My husband served in the military and was based in Montgomery County. So I said, why not own a beauty salon in Montgomery County? So therefore, you really had to learn your community. And I felt that, to really get into the crux of the African American community in Montgomery County was to become a member of our local NAACP chapter, which at that point was a very, very small branch. Some of the folks who lived African Americans who lived in Montgomery County didn't know about that specific branch until they started coming into Naturalists and being able to engage in conversations with my clientele. Because at the time, although I was rooted in Montgomery County, majority of my clientele were African American women. So that was quite interesting. So therefore, I had to be very creative in how I was going to engage with a new level of people and being able to actually provide a service and make it very unique for the community at large. But what is so important in Montgomery County, and I can see that we have Stacy here with us today, initially after the pandemic, and we were in the midst of transitioning back into the industry and not knowing how to do this, it was so important to really understand community at that point because we needed to build our business back together and better, and to come together at better. And still, deep down inside, I still have that passion to do such. It is so prevalent that we have to understand that we have to care for each other. We have to love one another. We cannot hold little idiosyncrasies against each other. We engage into the human side of individuals in order for us to be able to function in today's world today. It's so very difficult. And hearing the conversations of my clients on a day-to-day basis, stopping at that moment and going to the corner store and picking up a coffee and being able to show people that you can go far and beyond the call of duty to really engage in a good relationship with them. I love what I do. And I'm so honored that Dr. T and the staff gave me an opportunity to leverage this industry and become a community health worker. That is really going to add such a good part and good piece to the exercise of what we do on a daily basis, because folks right now are in pain. They're hurting.
Yeah.
Right.
And that is something that we're not to exclude or to ignore at all costs, because beyond that, once we beautify them and they're looking beautiful, that doesn't last. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That doesn't last.
Yeah.
So I just feel that empathy, love, and support is very critical, and that's not just in the beauty salons and barbershop, but that's in all industries.
Well, Miss Sandra Jenkins, the Cutting Edge have something special we want to do for you today, because we are so very proud of you. Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
And Andre made reference to the training, and again, they're role models for one another. So Miss Sandra is about to graduate with her certified community health certified community health worker certificate in the state of Pennsylvania, and will join Mike, Fred, and Katrina here in Maryland as certified community health workers. And I'm just so proud of you. We're all so proud of you, Miss Sandra Jenkins.
Thank you.
Absolutely. We're so very proud of you. Absolutely. Congratulations again.
And we can add on to that, Dr. Kinnebrew, mental health first aid is something that lay people can be trained in, and it helps people know their limits. As the mayor said, when you get into that space, you also need to know where the boundaries are when you do a handoff. And on our end, Mr. Mayor, we need to figure out how to make sure that Miss Sandra could pick up a phone and in a snap of a finger have a licensed social worker or counselor right there in her shop, or on a phone, or on a YouTube FaceTime right in her shop. That's technically possible. We should start figuring out how to make it happen.
You know, we talked about those sacred spaces, and the barbershops and the hair salons are those trusted information centers. And so when we are in those spaces, a lot of times people will share information that is critical to try to get them help. They are reaching out for help. And if we don't know they're reaching out, then we won't be able to be responsive. But at the same time, Dr. T, I think you're correct, that we have to make sure that they have the requisite tools to do that work. Let's bring up, again, we're so proud of you, Sandra Jenkins. We love you so much. You know how much we love and how appreciative we are. Let's go to Stacy Ruffin, back to Philadelphia. Hey, Stacy Ruffin, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. How's everyone?
Good. We love you so much. Tell people where you are.
I'm at in Waycoat, Montgomery County, right outside of Philadelphia, one step away from Philadelphia. Yes. So
yeah, Philadelphia people. Yeah.
I was born and raised there too. But I just wanted to say, by me having at Rejuvenate a barbershop and a beauty salon, I teach over like 300 people a week, like seniors. So we got a pact together where every week we're doing something for a child. If it's like buying them an ice cream, I told them just do something to mentor someone. And if I could start off with 300 people a week and everybody else can follow, maybe we can help 10 kids. And, you know, my sister's a school teacher, and a little kindergarten told her the other day, well, I guess I got to get my dad's gun because Marcellus is messing with me. You know, they just normal. And then last week we had a 5-year-old, his father was getting his hair cut in a barbershop, and he was in a car and he shot himself with his father's gun. His father left him in the car with a gun. And he was in the barbershop getting his hair cut. So what did we say? What can we do? So I just came up with a thing, just do something kind for somebody.
Acts of kindness.
Every chance you get, just buy them an ice cream cone. Just tell them hello. You know, what can I do for you? So that's our motto now, is just do it. And we've just been doing it here. And I've been rallying here. I'm just tired. Mental health is really, I just don't know. I just cry sometimes, and it's really pretty bad, but I just don't know.
But you know, Miss Stacy, I just love your creativity in the midst of it all. And we have to figure out how to rejuvenate ourselves. But the simple act of kindness, be it an ice cream cone or somebody's going through the grocery store line, you say, you know, I'll take care of that.
Yes, that's all we have to do. It takes only one. And I do it. I was in Sam's Club. Ladies' bill came up to $86. I paid the whole bill. I do it almost every other day. I don't care what store. I buy somebody something. And if everybody can just buy an ice cream cone, if somebody can just say something to a kid, then it could be better, because that one thing can maybe save their lives. Do something. We have to.
That's so wonderful. Stacy Ruffin, we again, we are so appreciative of you and all you do up there in the Philadelphia area. And we got you and Sandra Jenkins. That's a dynamic duo up there in Philadelphia. We got to go. Hey, Dr. T, we got to go visit Philadelphia, man.
And they got
Love
the
you,
world,
Stacey.
and they got the world's youngest barber up there too.
Absolutely, we got to do that.
We're gonna
Yeah.
get to Atlanta as well.
Absolutely. All right. So, do you know we are like 6 minutes away? So let me go back to Albie. Thank you so much for sharing. You see, we go into the barbershops and the hair salons, and we have this conversation. I know that there are no quick fixes, right? But we have to do something. But one of the challenges is Dr. King says that gradualism is a little more than do nothingism. And so this incremental things that don't amount to any systemic change merely gives you the delusion that you are getting something that you aren't. How do we get people to understand that a little bit is not enough? We got to go big or go home.
I think we just got to give people the opportunity to believe that achieving the seemingly impossible is truly possible. It's one of the things that is wholeheartedly a part of the culture of the University of West Florida that I've come to learn. It's part of our mascot is the Argonauts from the Greek mythology story of Jason and the Argonauts. And
All right.
that it's all about our whole culture that they try to instill in us is to always be pushing to take on the seemingly impossible. Because no matter what, even if you don't necessarily get as far as you think you're going to achieve something better than where you started at. So I think part of it is just getting out of this political apathy of this thought that I, as a single individual, can't do anything. Because quite frankly, I, as a single individual, can get out and I could try to get other people invested in the same things I'm invested in. And we'll have surprising conversations with people that I would have never had otherwise if I hadn't stepped out and been the first person just to say those things. I think one thing that we've, especially a little bit in this country, that we've misconstrued it a little bit is that being a leader is someone who's in power. That's not the case. Being a leader is being the person who steps out and does the right thing first. Who steps out and is pulling everyone along with them, is asking, how can I serve you better? How can I do better for everyone? I think a lot of just what coming into solving this nation's problems comes to simply asking the questions, talking to everyone, asking simply, are you okay? Are you doing okay? What is going on right now? You seem like there's something off. Like, I think that's where we have to be. We have to get out of this. We have to get out of each other's bubbles. We have to be willing to have conversations that in the past have been uncomfortable, because not having those conversations has dealt an incredible number on this country.
Yeah, I agree with that. Albie,
Gives
thank
me
you
hope,
so very
Albie.
much. You're an incredible person.
You're awesome, buddy.
Albie Clendenin, who is from the Pensacola area. He is a graduate of the University of West Florida, and he's on his way to graduate school. And look, you need to circle his name, underline it, highlight it, because you're going to see him on a national stage more. Dr. Kennebrew, I want to thank you again, man, but I want you to have the last word on this, man, because we have to capsulate. We have to try to figure out a way to inspire people that, as Albie said, that not to lose hope. Right.
Yes.
To do something. And I'm gonna end with the concept of do something, but I want to hear your last words, sir.
I believe that America has a culture problem, that there are facets of our society, minorities that are pushing certain agendas that to stay in power, that are having devastating effects in school shootings and other mass shootings. I believe that if we can go to the schools and we can teach young people, because you have to come through a public school or school at some point. I think 90-something% of kids have to come through school. And so if they are teaching not just reading, writing, and arithmetic, but they're also teaching empathy, and they're also teaching resilience, and they're also teaching concern, and they're also teaching self-discipline, that we can have an impact when that individual gets 18 or 28 or 38 or 48. But we have to make a start somewhere. And I think if we do it in the school systems and we turn down what we call sometimes the idiot box and don't allow those talking heads to stoke fires that are really irrational, that we can make a change and impact on what happens in our country.
Thank you.
Thank you so very much. Dr. T, love you, man. And I appreciate you so much for all you do, both seen and unseen, to all of our people behind the scene, and to all of our barbers and stylists and everybody, Dr. Ritter, everybody, Rondre, Stacy, Mike, Cassandra.
We got a crew. We've got a family here.
We love you so much. You know, I leave with this word because it has come up several times, and we know that primarily the focus has to go on our males, because that's where most of the gun violence is with our young men. And so I'm going to take the acronym DO SOMETHING and share with you my last thoughts.
Okay.
Do, daily objective. Do, daily objective. Something. Saving our males every day. Teaching, healing, inspiring, nurturing, guiding. So when you don't know what to do, do something. We appreciate you joining with us on this segment of You Got the Power. And as always, I'd like to, the cutting edge, as always, I'd like to leave with these two words. Remember that I love you with a perfect love. But more importantly, remember this: you got the power. Thank you for joining with us on this segment of The Cutting Edge. And we'll see you again soon. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.